Hello everyone! Welcome to the very first game review episode. Today we are looking at Valheim. Game developers defined the genre as open world survival craft, and we got here a Viking setting. Also, I would add that the game has some Metroidvania elements. Even though it's fairly linear, some mechanics and crafting are gated by bosses. The goal for review is to go through tier 1, fight the first boss, and go through some part of tier 2. Alright, let's go ahead. Let's spend some time on character creation screen. Unfortunately, there is nothing you can set up at the beginning, no skills, no attributes, no backgrounds, even though I would like to have some backgrounds at least. So we basically can change only a few colors, though the hairstyles are really cool. So let's choose colors and give our character a name and let's go! Before we start looking into game mechanics, let's talk a little bit about art style. The art style in this game stands out right away. It's not a classic low poly, even though the models are really low polygons, but the resolution of textures is really unique here. It reminds a little bit of stylization of Minecraft. Even in the old games, old RPGs, the first 3Ds like Evil Islands or even like first World of Warcraft, developers always tried to push as high quality textures as they could. From the other side, the shading capabilities were really limited. So developers tried to compensate using some hand painting techniques where they would actually baking the light into the texture itself. And today we have a very different situation. We can process a lot of light sources, and reducing the size of texture makes it really unique art style where you have like a perfect shading but those like pixelated textures. It also gives a lot of benefits for porting to low performance devices and essentially focusing all computing power into maximizing FPS but keeping absolutely stunning shading and excellent particles. UI also very minimalistic. It feels like it was just put together really quick, but I think it was rather an intentional decision to make such a UI, just to don't distract us from the gameplay and kind of focus more on immersive atmosphere. And the skill system is really simple and familiar for everybody who had a chance to play Skyrim or some other games. Originated, I believe, from very early Ultima games. And essentially it's improved skills as you use them. And progressively it's getting harder the higher level you gain. The number of skills at the beginning are limited, but as you acquire new weapon and start using different mechanics, they will appear in the UI. I think the good part of the skill system is that it actually forces you to use specific play styles to increase particular skills. Like if you want to be a good archer, you have to use a bow and shoot targets. Yeah, you cannot just smash some mobs by club and then add points to your archery. What I wish they have though, some checkpoints or levels, or maybe perks, because otherwise you're losing interest in improving skills really quick. Maybe something like Skyrim would actually be beneficial here. Let's now review some basic game mechanics. Food is actually a very essential mechanic in this game. As you can see, your standard health pool is very small and stamina pool as well. And as far as I know, there is no way to increase them. So the only way to increase health and stamina is to consume different foods. And all food essentially split into 3 categories. It's more inclined towards health, or more inclined towards stamina, or somewhat equal. And the really cool side that in this game you cannot ignore consumables like in other RPGs, because it's essential for quality of life and survival. The very first source of the food is picking around some berries and mushrooms, but if you need a really high quality food, you need cooking. There is no starvation mechanics where you would die because of absence of food, but you're gonna die pretty quick without food. The crafting system in this game is pretty deep, but also quite simple. You basically have two types of crafting, the one using your hammer and pretty much craft as you go, and the second is crafting at your workstations. You unlock recipes along gathering new resources. As soon as you got new type of material in your hands, you're gonna have access to the new type of craft recipes. It a little bit reminds me of Minecraft crafting system. One really cool and not really obvious trick about this crafting system balance is that even initial available resources will be really necessary at the later tiers. So the first hours of the game are mostly about making different types of weapons and start to harvest a lot of boars and deers. So let's talk now about the action component of the game. The very first impression would be probably it's similar to some Souls-like game. You can dodge, roll and jump around. But in Valheim it's much more simpler and doesn't actually require tons of concentration, much more forgiving for you. It doesn't mean that player skill doesn't impact the game. I think it's not really important at the beginning of tier 1, but later in the game it's pretty crucial to have good understanding of how fighting mechanics works and have good skills of dodging and fighting. One thing I really appreciate they have included in the game is a stealth mechanic, and it's actually surprisingly useful in this game. It even has a backstabbing component. Another one interesting design decision is to actually make a different damage type. It really encourages you to actually explore and try different weapons. And we're switching to the one of the best implementation of archery mechanic in the modern games I've seen recently. The trick is that even if you can prepare it from the games like Assassin's Creed, you're gonna suffer, because the accuracy of your bow is gonna be insanely bad. But once you get a grasp on it, it's so satisfying to kill every living things from the distance. And you can literally spend hours running around and shoot them all again and again. Alright, so once we get comfortable with standard mechanics, our next goal is to maximize tier 1 gears, prepare a lot of food, and make some reserve base near the boss spawn point. It's pretty much can be done within an hour or so. By the end of the first tier, I would say there is a soft gate and the hard gate. The soft gate is to upgrade your leather equipment, you need a lot of bones. And the source of the bones is mostly skeletons. You can find them in the Black Forest and swamps, but you're practically gonna get killed. And the hard gate is literally to get the next tier equipment you need to kill a boss. So as you can see, before the boss fight I have prepared a bunch of fire arrows, I have a full set of leather armor, I have a lot of cooked food, so I'm pretty much ready to fight. So on this note, I'm gonna wrap up episode 1. In the next episode we're gonna first of all review the mechanic from switching from tier 1 to tier 2, and also visit Black Forest and check out new mechanics for tier 2. And after that we're gonna have a small episode where we're going to recap the most interesting game design ideas from Valheim and pick some of them for the next game. Bye bye, and see you all really soon.